Welcome to the FF Forge. It is time to continue Rankings Day with the quarterbacks video. Just so you know, these are preliminary rankings. All of my final rankings, well, the rankings will go up on the website tomorrow on Thursday at www.theffforge.com. Link is down in the description there. Rankings truly aren't final until I go live on Sunday. Even while I'm live 1 hour before the games, I will not be going prior to the Sunday morning game, which is between Russell Wilson. So that is Denver versus Jacksonville. Just keep that in mind as well, especially with Russell Wilson if you plan on playing him. Set an alarm for like a half hour before kickoff to just make sure that all of your players in your lineup are going to be playing in that game. With that, so those are the final rankings are truly right up there, but usually Saturday night and or Sunday morning I will make some tweaks to the rankings, and I just make tweaks throughout the week. So you can find those once again up on the website. As far as what we are looking at today, these are going to be a little bit different than the running back and wide receiver rankings because I can do my projections a little bit quicker for these positions. This is what my projections look like. So this is the only time you will see these players in this order, as once I get them up onto the website, they will be closer to this order, if not exactly in this order. That is because I will put them in the order of my rankings up on the website. But this is a projected ranking. This is based on a number which you do not see on the screen that was purposely built to try to project what order they'll finish in at the end of the week. Other than that, over here is their temperature gauges. That is a rating of how good this matchup is or is not based on several factors, and I have added DVOA into that this week as well. So one new factor in there that I really like that I didn't realize I had access to until now. Over here we have the expected floors and ceilings. All of these are projections based on historical data, based on how they have done this season. Now, sometimes I go in and I will make slight tweaks to things, but for the most part, I want what players have done to speak for how we think that they will do. I do think that is the best predictor of the future for the most part. Once again, a little bit of tweaking here and there can't hurt from time to time, but I try to leave them as naked as possible without manipulating them, because that's what rankings are for. Rankings are for saying what I think is going to happen and taking some subjective data and entering that into the equation. Let's start out with the expected range. That is the heart of everything. What this is meant to be is I got kind of fed up with these one number rankings. What's the percentage of those hitting? Like 1%, 1 out of 100 times? Somebody's going to get right on with that projected number of, oh, here's the projection this week. It makes sense. It's really tough to project. I do them. I have single-digit numbers, and sometimes they do hit right on, but obviously it's not going to most of the time. So I wanted some sort of range of expectation, and that is what this expected range is. And then I ended up having a little bit of fun, and I thought, oh, that'd be cool to have like an expected floor and an expected ceiling as well, because sometimes I like to make my decision based on, oh, I think I'm in the doghouse this week, like I'm in trouble, or maybe Thursday night my opponent has an unexpected player just go off on me, and all of a sudden I'm shaking in my boots in my matchup. I'm like, oh, I need a ceiling, or I think I have this in the bag, and I'm looking between two players, and I just can't have one of them give me a goose egg that week. Well, then I'm looking for a floor. These are two separate things, and I ended up combining them for loading up onto Reddit in one post, and I think I will separate them for next season because I find myself jumping to these floors and ceilings, and I can't imagine I'm the only one just based on how this is presented. But the expected range is really where you should be going first, as far as this is like that projected single-digit projected number, but put into a range where you can expect them to hit within that range around for quarterbacks. Actually, it's between 50 to 60%. Most weeks, it's around 60% on average, actually. So that is that. I believe I ended up explaining the floors and the ceilings in there. So let's just get to my rankings. And I will be looking at the players that I have significantly higher or lower than the ECR Fantasy Pros Expert Consensus Rankings. So where am I differing from the average ranker? And right off the bat, we're going to let's just list off my top 12. My number 1 quarterbacks this week in this order. Starting at number 1 with Josh Allen, followed by Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, Kyler Murray, Kirk Cousins, Daniel Jones, Jameis Winston making it into the top 12 if he plays this week, Geno Smith, Derek Carr, and Jared Goff rounding that group out at number 12. This is my ranking. This is the ECR. And here's, if I'm above the ECR, it's going to be a positive number. Below, it's a negative number. So we'll just start right off with Jameis Winston, who obviously rankers, we don't know if he's going to be starting this week. So I really should have put him into like a not-ranked category like I did for my tight ends. But I wanted to show how nice this matchup is this week. And based on his production, too, even he ranked pretty highly this week in the projections. So it's a juicy matchup in a week where there's a group of just questions that I think are harder to pick through this week than they have been in some weeks past for many factors. So I really do like Jameis Winston a lot this week if he were to start. That simple. Now let's move on to the quarterback twos where we have a little bit more to talk about. So starting off at 13, I have Marcus Mariota, followed by Dak Prescott, followed by Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, Jimmy Garoppolo, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford, Jacoby Brissett, Taylor Heineke, and wrapping that all up is Davis Mills. Once again, in a slightly favorable matchup in a group that doesn't really have that, just like last week. And he must have done all right last week. He had 2 passing touchdowns. Let's start off with Marcus Mariota, who I have 4 spots ahead of ECR. The ECR in him is 17. I have him at 13. He's a safe enough guy going up against Carolina this week. I mean, I like the matchup. He's done well. He projects well. What else is there to say? And so why does he get above Dak Prescott? So Dak Prescott fell 6 spots below the ECR for me. I have him at 14 currently. And this has a lot to do with game flow. I do expect Dak, the Cowboys, they've said a lot about wanting to run the ball this season, and so far they've really followed through with it. And going up against Chicago this week, I expect that to be able to continue to a point where I don't think that there's much of a ceiling for Dak Prescott this week. I think he is a safe play, and he's in a group here of just kind of safer play options. So I'm taking a little bit of that higher floor with Marcus Mariota here. Moving on to my 15th ranked, the ECR 30th rank. So we don't need to talk about this a whole lot because I don't know where the experts are going to end up landing on him. Same with Jameis Winston. And so all of these, this group might be much closer. I mean, these might be, I might be within 2 of the ECR for some of these guys. So take this with a grain of salt of how different I am this week than the ECR, because I do have 2 players up here who the rankers aren't necessarily ranking like they're playing yet. But just as far as Russell Wilson goes, for some reason my projections do like him, give him a really high floor. I think that has to do with the fact that he has started to rush the ball a little bit, combined with, I believe he added a rushing touchdown into his profile, which definitely helps things out. And I guess the matchup, for whatever litany of factors that may have worked in his favor, I guess, this week, because I feel like this is the highest he's been for a while, and he did start performing better as of late. So risky spot. I will definitely be moving some of these guys around depending on my current feelings, I guess, and maybe any news that I pick up through the week of interesting stats that I'm like, ooh, I didn't think about that. Let's move on to Tom Brady, who I've ranked 16th. The ECR is ranked 10th, so I have him 7 spots behind the ECR, and he's just another floor guy that I do like here. Don't really think there's a huge upside, but going up against Baltimore, I do understand that people will feel like there is an upside there. I need to see it from Tampa Bay before I can believe it, and so I'm willing to take some of these guys ahead of him and use them this week. But he's definitely not a bad option, and I think you're pretty safe through like Trevor Lawrence this week. So another week where there's about 19 quarterbacks who I'm not going out to find a replacement for if that's the guy I'm relying on this week. And then we got Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm just a little bit afraid of that matchup there and where my rankings ended up putting him. My projections ended up putting him, but don't hate him obviously this week, as I just said. So now let's move on to Trevor Lawrence. I'm the perennial bad guy on Trevor, and it hasn't worked out for me for the last 2 weeks, but it's 3 rushing touchdowns in the last 2 weeks has really helped to bolster his score up from being closer to where I have him ranked to where the experts have had him ranked. So the experts are a little bit back maybe on him this week, whatever. They have him at 15, I have him at 19, so I'm 4 spots behind the ECR. Potentially just 2 spots though once Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston get into more ranks if they deserve to be. Neither one of them are sure starts this week. So Trevor Lawrence, the reason that I am concerned about Trevor Lawrence has to do with the matchup going up against Denver this week. So definitely don't love that. Now Denver's might be a nice week to be catching Denver. Their defense is a little bit banged up, so who knows, maybe that'll work in their favor, but he's at the bottom of the players that I want to be trusting this week. It's sort of like an Aaron Rodgers here going up against Buffalo. Terrible matchup. There is a ceiling in that matchup, but usually Buffalo only allows a few teams to. Cincinnati and Kansas City are the only ones that come to the top of my head. Maybe Jalen Hurts, maybe Philadelphia. I wouldn't be too scared to start against Buffalo there. But most teams, they don't allow to take advantage of the fact that they're putting up a lot of points on them and putting that defense out on the field a lot. So I have him ranked 20th, 4 spots being the ECR. The ECR is 16 on A-Raj. He's a Hail Mary throw this week. Then let's move on to the final quarterback 3s here, I suppose. Starting off with Ryan Tannehill, I have at 25th. Followed by Zach Wilson, Bailey Zappi, Kenny Pickett, PJ Walker, Sam Ehlinger. Ryan Tannehill, I have 5 spots behind the ECR. The ECR on him is 20. I have him at 25. Maybe it's only a 3-spot difference. Hopefully you're not having to rely on Ryan Tannehill this week. But as you can see, as far as these back-end guys go, he does have a decent floor just because of the usually the level of productivity for that passing attack, I think. And yeah, that's about it. So, decent floor guy if you had to rely on him going up against Houston, once again. So, not the worst matchup in the world. Then, Kenny Pickett going up against Philadelphia. So, I have him 4 spots behind the ECR. I'm at 28. Kenny Pickett's ECR and him's 24. Obviously, we're all afraid of that matchup for him. That's as simple as it gets. And then for Sam Ehlinger, I did want to point this out. So, I have him 5 spots behind ECR. I'm at 30th. ECR and him is 25. I found that a little bit surprising, but I suppose ECR is probably more like 27 if they were to include Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson. Main thing I wanted to point out is, in my projections, he looks decent, and the reason for this is I have no stats to work off of. So what I did, when I get a wild card, I usually like to do this, is I just take the averages for the stats that I enter in, and I take the averages of the players, and then what I did is I knocked most of that down by 80%. So I get down to 80% of the average production of other players. So obviously he's going to end up somewhere roughly in the middle, and then depending on other team factors and matchup factors, might have moved up a little bit or down there. So it looks like even if he plays below average, it's not the worst matchup or week to have him. Oh yeah, that's right. Going up against Washington. So it's an excellent matchup. So that helped beef him up here a little bit. And no, I'm not believing in PJ Walker like my projections want me to. Hell no. But that's also another case of it's a decent matchup there going up against Atlanta. So I guess there are some probably enticing DFS plays and contrarian plays this week that you could go with down there at the bottom with a PJ Walker, Sam Ehlinger. Also, Jared Goff. I don't think I ended up talking about him, did I? No. Do have him in that starter territory, but he is a guy who could jump up a little ways here. My faith in him is wavering a little bit until we know, hey, is he going to be getting... Well, I guess we're expecting Amon-Ra St. Brown back, so that's part of the reason I had him a little bit lower and then I moved him up. And if he gets DeAndre Swift back as well... If that offense is kicking in full gear going up against Miami, that could be such a high-scoring game. That would move him up probably right, maybe up to like 7th there even. Might be, just because of that potential ceiling. Gotta love those. So in a previous video, I said sometimes, I'm not ranking guys exactly because I think they'll finish in this exact order. I also take ceilings and floors, and so Jared Goff would be a case of I'll shoot for that ceiling over some guys who might be safer plays, who, the projections might have finishing higher than him, and sometimes you just got to shoot for those ceiling plays. So where it's worth it, I'll rank them. But that is it. I will have the tight end video coming out soon. Sorry, this went a little bit longer than it had to. But peace out. Tight end video is going to be short, and running backs and wide receivers videos were out earlier today. So go on and check those out until the tight ends video comes out. Bye-bye.